Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. This time, we're diving into the world of auctioneers. Those fast-talking masters of the gavel.
It's funny how they always seem to make it look so effortless, right?
Right, like anyone can just rattle off numbers and point at people.
Yeah.
Or, so we thought, I have a feeling there's much more to it than meets the eye, which is why we're here. And to guide us on this deep dive, we're turning to insights from RoleCatcher, the career guidance website.
They always have some fascinating perspectives.
They do. So to kick things off, let's start with the basics. RoleCatcher defines an auctioneer as, quote, a captivating public speaker and decision maker who conducts auctions by facilitating the bidding process and officially declaring the sale of goods.
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward, but even in that definition, you can see it's more than just talking fast.
Absolutely. They highlight an auctioneer's ability to create a dynamic and engaging atmosphere.
Which I think really emphasizes the people skill side of things. It's about reading the room, gauging interest, building excitement, whether that's in a packed auction house or, increasingly these days, an online bidding war.
It's like they're this weird hybrid of, like, a performer and a negotiator all at once.
And let's not forget the expertise needed. We're not just talking about knowing the starting bid here. They need to be true experts in their niche, whether it's antique furniture, rare books, fine art, you name it.
Oh, totally. Like, I'd be clueless if someone handed me a vintage scientific instrument and told me to start the bidding.
Exactly. They need to be able to authenticate items, spot forgeries, understand historical significance, and accurately assess value, all while keeping the energy up and those bids coming in.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. No wonder they always look so intense.
It's not just about the performance, it's about trust and knowledge. Buyers and sellers need to trust that the auctioneer knows what they're talking about.
So it's like they're investigative appraisers, AD, and engaging performers all rolled into one.
Exactly. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of a rapidly changing industry. RoleCatcher dives into some key trends that are really shaking things up, like the rise of online auctions.
Yeah, that's a game changer. No longer confined to those stuffy old auction houses.
Exactly. And it's not just about the platform shift, but also the global reach it provides. Auctioneers now have to be comfortable navigating international markets, connecting with buyers in Asia, sellers in Europe, dealing with different currencies, customs regulations, you name it.
Oh, wow. I never even considered that. It's like they're running international businesses in real time with a whole lot of charisma thrown in.
And then you factor in another trend RoleCatcher mentions, the growing interest in luxury and high-end goods.
Oh, right. Because now you're not just selling like a vintage lamp. You could be dealing with million-dollar artworks or rare collectibles.
Precisely. So the stakes are higher, the knowledge needs to be deeper, and the clientele is even more discerning.
So not only do they need to be experts in their field, they need to be master negotiators, international business people, and charismatic performers, all while the gavel's hanging over their head.
It's a fascinating blend of skills, right? And RoleCatcher doesn't stop there. They highlight some unexpected skills, too, things you might not immediately associate with auctioneering.
Oh, like what? Give me the inside scoop.
Well, beyond the speaking and persuasion, which we've kind of touched on, they emphasize things like negotiation, which makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, they're essentially negotiating deals left and right up on that stage.
Right, and judgment and decision-making, too.
Yeah, because they need to be able to read the room, figure out when to push for a higher bid, when to accept an offer.
Exactly. It's a lot of split-second decisions with potentially high-value consequences. And then this one surprised me. Law and government knowledge.
Whoa, hold on. Are auctioneers like moonlighting as lawyers now?
Haha, not quite. But when you think about it, they're dealing with valuable items, often with complex histories, ownership disputes, that kind of thing.
Oh, right. So like they need to make sure everything's legitimate, above board, all that.
Exactly. They're not just showcasing items, they're facilitating legal transactions, especially when you're talking about high-ticket items like real estate or rare artifacts.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about the performance, but also the legal and ethical considerations too. It's like being a high-stakes mediator with a gavel.
Ah, that's a great analogy. And speaking of finding the right fit, RoleCatcher goes beyond just listing these skills. They actually outline different stages of an auctioneer's career path.
Oh, cool. So it's not just one job title, but a whole trajectory you can follow.
Right. From entry level all the way up to, senior auctioneer or even chief auctioneer.
Wow, chief auctioneer. That sounds pretty impressive. What do they do exactly?
Well, RoleCatcher gives an example, saying senior auctioneers might be responsible for things like strategic planning.
Oh, interesting. I wonder what that looks like in the auction world.
Right. And we're not just talking about choosing which items to auction, although that's part of it. But think bigger picture, analyzing market trends to identify valuable niches.
So, like, are vintage watches having a moment? Or, like, is everyone suddenly obsessed with, I don't know, antique maps?
Exactly. Or maybe there's a surge in demand for sustainable or ethically sourced goods. They need to be ahead of those trends. And it goes beyond just identifying what to sell. They need to cultivate relationships with high-end buyers and sellers.
Oh, right. Because the people who can drop serious cash on a Ming vase are probably not just browsing online auctions on a whim.
Exactly. And then you have to think about developing marketing strategies to expand the auction house's reach.
So are we talking like influencer marketing, but for auction houses now?
Huh, maybe. But it's about finding innovative ways to connect with that target audience, whether it's through social media, targeted advertising, special events, you name it. It's a whole other level of strategy.
Wow, that's a far cry from just like standing at a podium and chanting bids.
It really is. And I imagine those strategic skills become even more critical as the industry evolves with all the online platforms and global markets we talked about earlier.
Totally. Because now you're not just competing with the auction house down the street, you're competing with auction houses on the other side of the world.
Exactly. And as you progress in your career, you might even take on mentorship roles, training and guiding aspiring auctioneers.
Oh, that's cool. Passing on the gavel, so to speak.
Exactly. But that also means you need to be able to articulate your process, your decision making, not just perform it.
That's a good point. It's one thing to be a successful auctioneer. It's another to be able to break down that success and teach it to someone else. It really is amazing when you think about it. The level of knowledge, the strategic thinking, the people skills. It's so much more than what we see on the surface.
Absolutely. And that actually reminds me of something RoleCatcher talks about in their interview prep section for aspiring
Oh,
auctioneers.
what's that?
They have some really interesting sample interview questions like, how do you handle last-minute changes to an auction?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Because in that world, things can change on a dime, right?
Exactly. A seller might pull out at the last minute, a piece might be revealed to be a forgery, you name it.
Talk about thinking on your feet. You'd have to be cool under pressure.
Exactly. And they had another one that I thought was interesting. Can you give an example of a successful auction you led and what made it so?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because it's not just about closing the deal. It's about understanding what success even looks like in those high-pressure situations.
Right. It's about reading the room, knowing when to push for a higher bid, when to accept an offer, when to maybe even, crack a joke to lighten the mood.
Uh-huh, yeah. Keep the energy up, but also keep it classy.
Exactly. And I think that question also speaks to the variety within the field, because success for an auctioneer specializing in, say, fine art might look very different from success for someone auctioning off real estate.
Oh, totally. Different strokes for different folks, or should I say different gavels for different auctions.
Ha, there you go. And speaking of different auctions, that's another thing RoleCatcher does a great job of highlighting.
What's that?
They really emphasize the diversity of specialization niches within the auctioneering world.
Oh, right. It's not just like one-size-fits-all auctioneering.
Not at all. You could focus on fine art, classic cars, real estate, online-only auctions. The list goes on.
It's like they've mapped out a choose-your-own-auction adventure.
It really is. It's about finding the niche that aligns with your interests and expertise.
Speaking of which, that brings us to a question for all of you listening. If you were to step up to that auction podium, what would be your specialty? What kind of items would get you excited to call out those bids?
Oh, that's a great question to ponder.
For me, I think I'd be drawn to the world of like rare books and manuscripts. Can you imagine the stories those auction items could tell? It'd be like being a historical detective.
I love that. I've always been fascinated by vintage scientific instruments, astrolabes, telescopes, early microscopes. There's something so intriguing about the intersection of craftsmanship and scientific discovery.
Oh, that's amazing. See, this is what I love about these deep dives. We started with a simple question, what does an auctioneer actually do? And we've uncovered a world of hidden complexities, unexpected skills, and fascinating career paths.
It really goes to show that no matter how familiar something may seem, there's always more to learn and discover.
Couldn't agree more. A huge thank you to you for being our guide on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Thanks for having me.
And all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you'll look at auctions in a whole new light now. Until next time.